Hey Sinners, my name is Kat.
And I'm Jess, and today we'll be going over all of our 2023 books that we've read this year. Yay! Super exciting. So, this year has been a rough year. Oh my gosh. Neither of us made our goal that we had on Goodreads. We both kind of fell a little short of our goals, but we had a very eventful, personal year. So, less time for reading, but more time for other stuff.
I read so many books last year and it was so easy and it was so fun and simple. In this year, I was really even struggling to even want to pick up a book. And there was a point in time in the summer that I read like four of them in 1 month, but it was just a struggle. And I think I found myself dedicating a lot of my time to like other hobbies as well, just because the thought of having to sit down and really focus on something wholly was a lot for me.
Yeah, it was a busy year. It was hard to really sit down and focus and read for me as well this year in the same way that we did in the year prior. So, with that said, it's time to start our 2023 book ratings for this year. So, this year we have 5 different tier rankings. So, the first one is Wish I Could Read This Again for the first time. The second one is Hold a Special Place in My Heart. The next one is Love It. The next one is Just Okay, and the last one is
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So we're gonna be using that to determine which books fit into which category. So just like last year, we'll be going over the books that we read individually, and then saying a little bit about why we rated it that way and our thoughts and feelings on that book. And then the books that we read together, we'll be talking about them kind of together, and then rating them holistically. So with that said, let's get started. So the first book that I read this year was The Lovesick Titans, which is the second book, or the second part to the Lovesick series by Amanda Mueisen, I think. I don't know. But this book was really just so amazing. A great way to start off the 2023 year for me. I truly do have such affection for this book. It's really hard for me to put it into a category. I'm gonna say it holds a special place in my heart, which I think is a good strong start. I do wish I could read it again for the first time, but I do think it holds more of a special place in my heart, more so than me reading it again for the first time, because it was not really what I expected. The duology was not. I thought it was going to be more about fantasy and the Greek gods and all that, and it kind of was, but it was more about superheroes. Overall, really good, really amazing book, and I just love it. I really do just love it with my whole heart. I think holds a special place in my heart is just the category it has to go into. Though I do really want to forget what I read so I can read it again for the first time. So it's kind of in the middle of those two, but I do think overall holds a special place in my heart. So next is the Championship, or it's called Championship, by Alethea Faust. This book was, I love this series, honestly. The Sex Wizard series, so amazing. This book was not as holistically enjoyable as the other 2 books thus far. So I'm gonna put it in Love It. It was really good, don't get me wrong. It was more plot driven than character driven as the other ones had been previously, so it just had a different vibe to it. Not that I didn't like it, it just was different, and it was just not quite what I was expecting, but still very good overall. Yeah. Next is the Speak the Truth trilogy. I read these so quickly. So quickly. I had a friend get them. Well, I didn't have a friend, but I asked a friend to get them for me for Christmas last year, and they surprised me with all 3 of them, so I got to read all 3 of them immediately. And they were just really good. I'm gonna say that I loved each of these books. Yeah, I'm gonna put them all in Love It. Yeah, because there was so many twists and turns in these books, and it really was just it was enemies to lovers, but it was there was so much there. What a great trilogy.
Okay, so the next book, this was, actually don't know where this fell. I think this is one of the last books that I read this year. Oh, it was the last book that I read this year. And I would put this one into Wish I Could Read It Again for the first time. I don't know what it is about this book, but I loved it. It was just like the romance aspect of it, and I was yeah, no, some of the sex scenes too, and it wasn't even inherently like overtly sexual. I guess it's just like the nature of the job, of course, that she's like milking the cows. Um, but yeah, no, I really enjoy Sam Nescada as like an author, and yeah, truly, it was just such a good intro to the series, and I want to read the others in the series.
Okay, next is the Lost Brothers trilogy, and I actually got these books like generally. Okay, so I'm not like a taboo like romance reader in general. Like that's usually not really where I'm going. Like I'm not like seeking it out, but if it's like there, I'm like okay. But this trilogy truly insane. I have such affection for these books and I didn't expect to. Yeah, it's oh my gosh. Okay, so first and foremost, I like won the first two books in like a giveaway. It was the first and thus far only giveaway that I have won. And I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't what I got, if I'm being so serious. Um it really is like I'm so baffled even thinking about like this series is not for the faint of heart. You have to go in knowing, and I didn't really go in knowing, but I still kind of ended up with like such like love and affection for these characters in a way I never thought I would have. You know, it's crazy. I'm gonna have to put it in. I wish I could read it again for the first time because I'm telling you the emotional turmoil. I messaged the author on Instagram after reading the first two books that I got in the giveaway, and I was genuinely like, oh my voice cracked. I was genuinely like, what the actual like heck is what is happening? How did this why is it like this, you know? I
Yeah.
genuinely I actually do remember I was crying in this. I cried several times because I was like I just don't know how to like put it into words, the actual sheer amount of emotion that I felt. And then the last book came out, and the last book a lot of people, it didn't go in the direction that a lot of people wanted it to, but it is still, I personally think it was needed. Honestly, I think it was needed the way it ended. I think it ended as it was supposed to. So I truly do have such affection for these books despite their inherent taboo nature. It's I don't know, man. I don't know. These books really kind of mess me up, but they mess me up in a good way. So I don't know. But yeah, there's that. Yeah. Okay, so next is Pies and Promises and then Meets and Memories, which are in, oh my god, I don't remember the name of the series. It's the Heartcraft Market, I think, series by Ducky Mac. But for Pies and Promises, I'm gonna have to put it in Love It. Like, it was good. It was very cute. It's a very soft read. Yeah, it just wasn't really, there wasn't really a lot to it that I was like, okay, maybe because Pies and Promises was the start of the kind of world, it didn't have as much as I wanted it to, but Meets and Memories really did have that, so I have to put that in, hold a special place in my heart, because it had what I wanted it to have. It had more than I wanted it to have. It just was everything I wanted and more. So
all right, so the next book is Yearning for Her. This is by Tiffany Roberts. I would give this book holds a special place in my heart. We know how much I love a character who's just kind of a dick, and I think he really does fit that role. But he's like, he eventually became so sweet and just really cared for the main character in a way that she needed to be cared for. Tiffany Roberts does a really good job of having so much plus size representation within their books. And yeah, no, I really do enjoy this book, and I typically enjoy everything that they put out.
okay, next is The Beauty and the Orcs. I actually truly did adore this book. I got an arc of it, and oh my gosh, I have to say it holds a special place in my heart because it was just so, oh my god, there's so much. If I have to, okay, I'm going to say this here because I've been thinking about it for a while now, but every single like Finley Finn book that I read that takes place on Orc Mountain. Truly, the main theme, the underlying theme of these books is betrayal. Like, if there's not betrayal in these books in some form, some fashion, it's not a Finley Finn book, you know? It's just not. It's just, it just can't be, because betrayal is what I've noticed. It's a common theme. There has to be some kind of betrayal by somebody. Somebody's got to betray somebody in some fashion. And truly, I felt it. Truly devastating, the betrayal of this one. But yeah, just, it was so good. It had things that I was so excited to read it. It had things that the other books I had read up until that point didn't have in that series for me. It just was so, I don't know, it was just so much more. So, yeah. Next is The Garden of Eden by Helly Heat. This book, I'd have to say, also holds a special place in my heart. Like, this book kind of, like, it reads like how a movie is. It's so well polished. Do you, like, does that make any sense? Like, it's so well polished around the edges. Like, it reads like, I can see this being a movie in the future. Do you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't, like, if somebody, like, a producer or something picks it up and, like, adapts it, like, they don't have to do much to it, because the book is just so, it's got, like, everything, and it's so, like, well done, and the world itself is just so well-rounded, and the characters and, like, just the dark dystopian intrigue of this book is just, I'm not, like, really a dystopian kind of girly, you know, but oh my gosh, was this book, it was just truly shocking in the most shocking and amazing ways. I was like this, oh my gosh, truly just, it had everything I wanted to have. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm rambling.
Yeah, you're good.
But, the second book I liked a little less, but it was, I'm gonna have to put it in love it. I liked it just a little bit less than the first book, but I still really liked it. I'm still reading the third book, so we'll see where the third book lands in the future. Because the first book was just, it was kind of like, it's like, the first book was like, kind of like going up like the hill of like the plot, you know? And then we took like a little bit of like a nosedive into like the second one to go more into like the world building, which like that was like fine, but it just kind of lost a little bit of its momentum that the first book had built up. But yeah, still very good. So next is the collection of Monstrous short stories by Lily Man. And this is obviously, as the title states, a collection of short stories from the Monstrous series. I had read like 2 or 3 of these on Lily's website before they became a book, but it was, I'm gonna have to say that I loved it. It was really like, it was really just kind of like an anthology of our beloved characters from the Monstrous series. Like, it really wasn't, like, it was good, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like anything that I was like, oh my god, this was groundbreaking, you know. It was just like, okay, these are really cute stories that I'm glad I got to read, and that's the end of it. So next is Starshine by Alethea Faust. So this book, okay, this is gonna be kind of hard. Oh my god. Okay, sorry, I'm really thinking about this. I'm gonna put this in, holds a special place in my heart. I have to, because truly Garrett and Bridget are just, they're just everything to me, honestly. I think that's enough said. They're just everything. So, yeah.
No, that's so fair. The next book is Grab the Bull by the Horns by Sam Hall. And this is it's in the same, I guess, series, but it is a standalone book. It's in the same series as the Orc Horde Encounters. But yeah, it is a standalone. I would say that I love this book. I love the 4 main characters. But it is just like a beloved book of mine, but it's nowhere near the other 2, I think. There are some things that I was like, but overall it was a very good read, and is something that I enjoyed.
So next is Tricked at Sea by Ducky Mack. This was like kind of just like a short little story. It was maybe like only 50 so pages. And it was a part of like a larger collection of books, I think, like cruise related books. But I only read like this one. And
cruise as in,
yeah, like
sea?
Like sea.
Oh.
Yeah, like sea cruises. Yeah, and like, it really was cute. I'm gonna have to put it in loved it, because it really was cute. Like, it was short and it was cute. And like the main guy's name, I thought it was like the play on words was kind of funny. Like it was genuinely kind of funny. And there was like one hot tub scene. They were in, this kind of makes me not want to go into cruise hot tubs anymore, but
Oh yeah, I can't imagine the juices that are in them.
yeah, I was like, ooh, I was like, y'all doing it in the hot tub anyway.
And the communal pool.
Literally. But the guy's name is Patrick, and I was like, tricked at sea.
Oh, no, that's cute.
So yeah, I loved it. It was cute. It was a short read, but it was a cute read. So yeah. Next is Berries and Greed by Lily Man. This was the first female-male pairing that Lily has like written in any of her books. So I'm gonna have to just say that I loved it. It was a lot more like mundane than the Monstrous series. It took place in like a very like suburban realistic world. It had some cool aspects with like the main character being a part of like a cult. But it really was just kind of like more slice of life than like fantasy, or though there were like some supernatural fantasy aspects to it, it was really just like a slice of life with some like monsters. Which was good, but it was just like a little bit not as adventure-y or exciting as Lily's previous books that I read. So yeah. Next is Whispers in the Dark. This was a collaboration between Lily Man and Nicole Knight. And I
don't know how she puts out so many books so consistently.
Honestly, Lily Man genuinely has one of the fastest turnaround times for books that I have seen. Usually it takes like, years to publish anything, but Lily has several books. Like Lily's had like 4 books out this year, maybe even 5.
Yeah,
4 or 5 books out this year, and this is just this year, which is truly insane. I don't know how Lily does it. I don't know. She's just got so much in her mind. So yeah, I gotta give her props for that. As you said, but this collaboration between Lily Man and Nicole Knight, I'm gonna have to give it a loved it as well. It was interesting. I don't know, I felt so bad for the main character. He really had a rough life. It was just, I don't know, it kind of made me more sad than like happy reading it, if that makes any sense. I was just like, this is kind of devastating in a way that like like in the Monstrous series, it's like, okay, this is like unfortunate, but like everybody's going through this. This was like very much a realistic kind of trauma. Yeah, that I was like, oh my gosh, I am just so sad for this main character. Yeah, so but it was a good book, but it really did just make me a little bit more sad than like like happy in the end. So
yeah, I remember I started it and I was like, this just seems a little heavy for the place that I'm in right now, and I never went back to it.
Yeah, it is. It really is heavy. Honestly, it's heavy in a different way than Lily's books usually are. Because Lily's books usually have like a still like this like air of like lightness to them, or like joviality. I don't know if that's a word, but like jovialness. But this one was just, there was like maybe it's Nicole Knight's influence or something, I don't know, but it really, because I've never read any of Nicole's books, but it really just had a depressing air to it the entire time. Even at the end, I was like, okay, this is good, but it's like yeah, I'm glad everything's like happy and everything, but it's still just like deep-rooted drama that I'm like, oh my god. Yeah. So yeah, that's that. I loved it though, but yeah, just trauma. Anyway, next is The Dragon Warlord by S. Legend. Oh my gosh, I have to say that this book holds a special place in my heart. I didn't expect any more books from like Tristan or like the Tristan trilogy that I read last year, but this was like a pleasant surprise. It hit in the way that a fictional story I want to hit. It was just so good. I loved it so much. Yeah. Oh my god, and Tristan River are just so amazing. Oh my god. So amazing. I'm so excited for more books. Because I've been told that there will be more books. So I'm holding S. Legend to that promise. Yeah, anyway, the Follow the Orc by Finley Finn, I'm gonna have to put it in Hold a Special Place in My Heart as well. It really did have, again, Betrayal. I don't know, it just was so good. I really don't have any other words other than it was so good, and I loved it. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so fair. Okay. So I want to do the next two books together because they are part of, like, they're in the same series. I'm gonna put them both in Holds a Special Place in My Heart. I love the characters from these books, and I don't know, they just like elaborate on each other so well, and they're so sweet and soft. Specifically, the Girls Weekend had a scene in it that I was like, I still have not forgotten it. But yeah, it's so simple, so sweet, but they do still deal with like real life issues, and it is interesting to see how these elves and the orcs kind of mend together and have to like exchange their culture and like learn to live with one another. Yeah. If there's ever like a third book out of these two, I am going to gobble it up. Again, with the same author as the Morning Milk, or like the Morning Glory, and they're kind of like in the same world, so like they do have a little bit of overlap with each other, which is why I think that I loved the Milking Farm so much. So yeah.
Next is Heartbreak Hockey. This was my first hockey. I know a lot of people
they go crazy for a hockey book.
Yeah, a lot of people in the book community like hockey books. I'm not a sports romance reader, if I'm being so serious.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't usually see the appeal of like sports and romance. Like I know I'm just like it's a little just too mundane for me. I usually go for more like fantasy, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
This was Heartbreak Hockey by S. Legend, and it's my first like hockey like sports read, and I'm gonna have to put it in Holds a Special Place in My Heart because it really did just open my eyes. Like I get the appeal. Do you know what I mean? Like I do get the appeal of like a sports romance now. I'm like, okay, this is kind of good. This is kind of unique and kind of fun. I kind of like it. I don't know if that's just S. Legend's writing and if all like sports books are like this, but this book really did just like kind of open my eyes to the world of like sports romance. Yeah, I just was like, wow, this is kind of good, and I kind of like it, and I definitely want more content. And it was so, oh my god, I don't know if this is also just like S. Legend, but this book was so funny. It was so funny. There were so many like comments and stuff that I was like, this is so funny. Like I don't know if it just appeals to my sense of humor, but so funny. Had to put that out there. Next is the Upending Tad. I don't even know. It's series, perhaps, I guess. But these two, like I got like the bundle, so like it's like 3 books in one. I'm gonna have to put these in Love It. These like 6 books. I got the bundle of like 2, so it was like the first half and the second half. But it was how do I say this? It was a lot of it was straight smut. I'm gonna be so honest. The plot was there, but was it really there? Mm-hmm. The quote unquote plot, if I'm being so serious. Yeah, like it was good, but I went in expecting there to be a little bit more genuine like plot, other things happening. I didn't really get that. Mm-hmm. But I will say that the spicy parts were indeed spicy, and it is heavily based in kink and BDSM. I thought that was really interesting. It did show a little bit more of that aspect. So I thought that was just, I don't know, it was just a fun read. Honestly, it was just a fun read. So next is the kind of like spin-off series with one of the characters that does come up in like the main character's love interest's roommate. is the character for this next book. The main character, Unearthed, I think is what it's called. Unearthed book by Cora Knight. And there's like another book that I'm still reading that's also in this series, and there's like another spin-off book in this kind of world, the same world, with another character. It's like the main character in the first book, like the Upending Tads series. It's that character's like friend. Anyway, it's all kind of connected, but I haven't gotten there yet. But anyway, the Unearthed book, I'm gonna have to put that in Loved It as well. This one had a lot, like, you know what, I was literally just like, oh my god, the first like Upending Tad is just like smut. This one is, there's so much plot here. It's truly a thick book, truly so thick. it was almost hard to get through at times because of how plot heavy it is, and it's honestly kind of it's kind of dark, and it's kind of dark. And like not Opening Tad was like, it was still like jovial, and it had a few like dark kind of like, okay, this was morally questionable, but this one was, Unearth was truly dark in its character development. So be wary of that if you do ever take up both of those books, or both of those like series, but very good overall.
Okay. So next is The Lady and the Orc. Although I really did enjoy and like this book, and this book is what really I just wanted to read more of the books in the series. I'm just gonna put it's just okay. I really enjoyed like the smut scenes, but something about and like I get it. I know I complain about it a lot. But I'm pretty flippant about it. The orneriness of the main female character just pissed me off sometimes. She was unbearable in the way that she would like screech and just like was just so erratic in her behavior, and just almost like I really had to close the book and kind of just sit there sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it.
I loved learning about the world, and it was a good book. Oh damn, I don't know. Yeah, but I don't think I would say that I love it. Like I have fond feelings for it, but I don't. I'm like, oh my god, wow. You know?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and that's why honestly, because I did read this book last year, and I felt, and when I get to editing the video that we have for The Lady and the Orc, we did talk about like you really didn't like Jewel, and I really didn't like Grimar that much. I felt, we had kind of like opposite opinions on that.
Yeah.
But I completely agree that I don't really think I loved it, even though I rated it a 5 out of 5 like on Goodreads. I do think it is just like okay, especially after reading the later books in Finley Finn's like Orcsworn series. I do holistically just think it is just an okay book. It's not as good as Finley's later work. Which is, I mean, that's to be expected, but just okay. So I completely agree with you there.
Because I had given it a 4 to 5 on Goodreads, but just something about it compared to like when I'm really sitting with it and comparing it to the other books that I read, I'm like, this isn't one of my favorites from the year.
Yeah, no, that's so fair. Okay, next is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. First of all, I'm gonna say this really quick. I know that there's probably like some reason why, like there's probably like some like, I don't know, art reason or like something with like the artist or something, but I loved the art of this cover. It was truly this series, the art on the cover for this is truly it's just so good. I did purely buy the book because of the art on the cover and because of the title. I did grab it, and because I was like, oh my god, you know, like a black main character who's a woman, like I'll take it, you know, in like fantasy, like of course, you know. But there's been like a change in the art style of the cover, and it's not my favorite. The new art styles, I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm really sad because I have 2 of the books and then like the novella in this current art style, but they're no longer like the author is no longer selling the other books, like not even like a special edition or anything that in this art style with this artist or anything. So I have like these 2 books. I have these 3 books really that will now not match the rest of the series, and that kind of makes me upset personally. And like I don't know, there's maybe was like a dispute or something happened. I'm not really sure, but I'm just like, no, I was devastated. I was like, I love this cover, and it's they're gone. You can't even get them anymore. But the book itself was really good. I'm gonna have to say I loved it. It was really good. It was not really what I expected. It was kind of just like I don't know. It was just, I don't know. It was good. Good read. Next is King of Death, which is the 3rd book in the folk series by Lily Main. I'm gonna have to put it in. I wish I could read it again for the first time, because honestly, this series, oh my gosh, the series was a roller coaster. The first book, insane. The second book, a little less insane, but I needed it to be less insane because the first book was just so much. And then this book really tied up all the loose ends, but not before causing immense pain and suffering for all of the readers. So, oh my gosh, it was just so good. It was so good. I truly do wish I could read it again for the first time. If I could just forget the whole series and start over, I think I'd be just as enthralled, if not more so, than I was the first time reading it. So, great book.
Oh.
I know why there was an O. It fits perfectly with what category it's going into. Oh, brother, this guy stinks. Okay, I gotta explain. I truly do have to explain this. So, okay, it all started when I got an arc for the second book. I had never read any of the books by this author before, and I got an arc for the second book, which is the next book, How to Sell Your Blood and Fall in Love, is the second book. The first book is How to Bite Your Neighbor and Win a Wager, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy the first book, because I hate reading books out of order, especially if they're, like, chronological. So I was like, I'm just gonna buy the first book, and I'm gonna read it really fast, just so I can have, like, some basis for this arc, right? In the first book, I was like, oh my gosh, it's vampires. Of course. I love vampires. I love, like, fantasy vampires. And I was like, this takes place in a modern setting. I was like, it's going to be like Twilight or something. And, you know, I do like Twilight. Honestly, a lot of people hate it, but it's a good childhood memory of mine. And it's, like, just so funny to watch it now. And I'm just like, okay, this is, like, maybe not the best writing, but it's truly just, like, I think, like, a classic. It's, like, classic. Anyway. But I thought it was going to be kind of like that, like vampires in a modern setting. Oh my God. In this book, nothing happens. There is no plot. There is nothing. There is nothing. Like, let me sum up the plot for you really quick. So, you've got vampires. They're kind of hated in this world. And the thing is, usually when you think vampires, you're like, okay, they have, like, superpowers and stuff, right? Or, like, they're, like, extra strong to make up for, you know, the things that can harm them, like sunlight and garlic and whatnot.
Yeah.
In this book, they've got, like, none of the allure that vampires usually have. It's basically vampires in this society that is here, they're, like, marginalized. They're hated. They're weak. They're just all around they're basically just a marginalized group of people is what they are, who drink blood. They have a diet of blood. They're a marginalized group of blood drinkers who are fairly weak, because humans can capture them super easy, because there's this place that has, like, captured vampires, right? Anyway, so my main gripe with this book, let me get into it. My main gripe with this book, because okay, the world building was, like, okay, like, I was like, okay, aside from vampires just being, like, basically just people who, you know, and they can't find jobs because people, like, don't have jobs at nighttime because people hate vampires, so, like, they can't find jobs, and they're, like, out in the streets, and, like, they can't. Anyway, long story short, it's just, like, it's like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? I'm genuinely like, what the fuck is this? It has none of the fantasy that I want in a vampire romance. Anyway, long story short, what I really don't like about this book is that the main character, Wes, makes, like, such a big deal about, like, how the Vince, I think is the name of the vampire, like, breaks into his house and, like, bites him without his consent, and, like, makes such a big deal out of it. And I was like, I never really thought about, like, vampires really do commit, like, home invasion and break consent. I never really thought about it, but I was like, oh my god, that's an interesting point, which I did think that was interesting. But Wes makes such a big deal out of it, and he's like, you need to, like, repay me, you know, like, basically you need to make up for, you know, the home invasion and the lack of consent, you know. And Vince is like, okay. And the thing is, as I said, vampires are, like, marginalized, so, like, they're not able to get food in, like, proper means, you know. So, like, he was really just desperate. Like, he was genuinely on the verge of death. Like, that doesn't make up for his actions, but, like, it kind of at least explains why Vince broke into his house and bit him without, you know, like, asking beforehand. But anyway, Wes makes such a big deal out of this. But then Wes is looking for his mother, who died at this facility. And at this facility, we later learn that there's, like, vampires being stored there, and big plot twist, his mom was turned into a vampire. Also, oh my god, okay, sorry. Anyway, so also Vince, who's the vampire who broke into Wes's house and, like, everything, he was, like, forcibly turned, like, without his consent, too. So I was like, oh my god, this poor guy, he can't go home, he can't go back to college, he's stuck as a vampire, he has no way to get a job, he's homeless. And, like, yeah, he was, like, drugged and turned into a vampire when he was at a college party. Well, I guess he was, like, roofied and turned into a vampire. Anyway, long story short, he's just had a rough time, so I felt really bad for Vince. And then Wes over here is making such a big deal out of the lack of consent and home invasion. And then, ooh, Wes goes and, in order to find out more about his mother's mysterious death, he drugs Vince, the vampire. He drugs him. He drugs his blood. The blood bag he got for Vince, he drugs it so that Vince, like, is drugged. He then kidnaps Vince to take him to this facility that, like, is, like, killing vampires. And, like, Wes knows this. Like, he knows that this facility could have Vince killed. He drives him there, only to turn around at the last minute realizing, oh my god, maybe I'm making a mistake. And I was like, you're kidding me. You drugged and kidnapped somebody. You think you're making a mistake now? Like, you should have thought about this before you did it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was truly baffled. I was like, oh my god, this, like, morally righteous person is not morally righteous at all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not only that, later in the story, Wes kills this vampire hunter guy, and, like, he indirectly kills him, like, he pushes him and he, like, lands on a rock or something, but, like, he shows no remorse. Like, and, like, of course, like, the guy was a bad guy, but, like, he shows no remorse for killing him. I was like, what the heck?
Damn.
I was like, he's a little crazy.
Yeah.
And not only that, they break into the facility and he finds information that could be leaked to, like, help the vampires that are still being held in the facility and, like, let people know that this corporation is actually really bad. He finds information on that, even if it doesn't help him, like, even if it doesn't, like, help him directly, it still could be, like, out there and, like, put out there just so people know about it. No, he decides, like, let me actually just blackmail the corporation with the information that I have so that they leave us alone. I was like, you had the opportunity, like, would feel so guilty, personally, if I had the opportunity to help people, like, help the, like, vampires and people that are there still, by, like, spreading awareness, of, like, the horrible atrocities that this facility is doing. Even if it didn't result in anything, at least people would know, you know what I mean? They'd have this information. But he uses it as blackmail material to keep them away from, like, him and Vince, which I'm like, okay, like, yay, now you're safe, but what about everybody else? You really just said screw everybody else. So, yeah, I did not like the main character. I'm like, I'm supposed to be rooting for this guy? You're kidding. You're joking.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I felt very bad for Vince and not very, very bad. I didn't feel anything for Wes. I actually kind of felt disdain, if I'm being so serious. Mm-hmm. So, and that was, like, the whole book. That was the entire book. I just described to you the entire book. So, yeah, it was just not my favorite. It was not my favorite. I was genuinely, like, I put it down and I said, what the fuck? So, anyway, the next book was a lot better. I'm still just gonna have to put it in just okay. You know, it takes place in the same setting, and I feel bad because the main character, Clementine, was also forcibly changed into a vampire, and, like, what's with all this forced vampirism? Like, is this supposed to mean, like, is this supposed to be alluding to something, like, that I'm just not, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was, like, unbeknownst to him, changed to a vampire, and I felt bad for him, but, like, nothing happened, really, in the book. It was good, it was just not, it was truly just lacking in almost every way. Yeah, which is, I think that's a harsh criticism, but I have to say it because that's really how I did feel. And, like, it was a good book, but I don't think I'm gonna read it again, either of those books.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's what I've got to say on that. All right, enough of that. On to Yuled by the Orcs. I did really love this book. I'm gonna put it in loved it. It was, like, it had, like, older characters, which I really appreciated. I don't think we see a lot of, like, 40 to 50-year-old characters in books as main romance interests, so I thought that was really, really fun. And it was centered around, like, Yule and Yuletide, so I was like, oh my gosh, what a great holiday festive book, because I usually don't read, like, books that are related to, like, the time of year, but this was a really good one to read, so yeah. And I got an arc of it too, so yeah, it was a great book by Finley Finn, so yeah.
Okay, so the next book is A Dark and Starless Forest, and this is the only book that I read this year that didn't have smut. And it was a really good book, and it had like a lot of representation within one of the characters being bisexual. There was numerous trans characters. There was someone who was like mute, and then a plus size main character. So there was a lot of representation within like the main cast. It is just okay. Again, not one of my favorite books from the year, but it still had a lot of great elements, and it was a really enjoyable book. There was a lot of, well, there was a plot twist and things that I didn't expect. And it is something that I would recommend to people who might want something, I guess it's not super soft, but it is quite interesting. And it does involve like witches and things like that. But it did feel a little young adult to me compared to the other things that I have read, which isn't a bad thing. It was just something different than what I've been reading for the past 2 years, I guess. Yeah.
Next is the Bro and the Beast series by Elsie Davis. Elsie Davis is truly so funny. This read like how a Wattpad book read. Like, it really felt like a fan fiction, if I'm being so serious. It was like jovial, and like there were parts of it that I was like, okay, this is kind of unpolished, and there was definitely timeline issues where I was like, okay, you said this was gonna happen in a week and it happened in like a month, and I'm like within the story, and I'm like, this timeline does not match up, which kind of bothers me. But I think it was just such a fun read. I have to put the first one as holds a special place in my heart because it truly was so funny. The first book was so funny. I was cackling. I was like, this is so funny. He referred to the main character, because like it's a book within a book. And I think he referred to like the main character. Like the main character in the book that we're reading refers to the main character in the book that he's reading about as like unsalted butter. And I just think that's so funny. I just was like, what the fuck? Like I was like, her personality is so bland. He's like, she's unsalted butter, and I was like, that's so funny. Anyway, maybe this is my kind of humor. But I thought it was so funny. The rest I'm gonna put in loved it. Oop, running out of room here. Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, and then there was like kind of like a spin-off series called The Villain and the Geek, which is about the main character's brother, and then the main villain, obviously, in the story. I'm gonna put this in Loved It as well, but I will say that it's not as good as the Bro and the Beast because it's a lot quicker, it's a lot less developed. There's only one book in the series so far, so it's just, I don't know, I guess we'll see if it gets any better, but right now it's like a little bit like meh compared to the other, like the main series, but still very good and still very light and fun. A little darker in some aspects, but still very fun. I liked it. Last but not least, we have Lore.
Ooh. I would put this in Love It.
Oh, okay.
How do you feel?
I was gonna say hold a special place in my heart.
Okay.
But I think, I don't know. It's hard because
I'd be fine moving it up. I do think it was just for me. I talked about this in our video reviewing Lore. I just didn't enjoy the characters in the same way that I did like previous characters in the previous books. I do think that it added a lot to the world, but I don't think that I hold the same fondness for the book that I do others.
No, you're so right. Okay. No, that I think you make a very valid and very good point that I definitely agree with. I think you're right. In the whole of the series, it isn't as good as books that I know were placed and hold a special place in my heart last year. So no, I think you're right with putting it in Loved It.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, overall, it is like a great book, and I really do enjoy it. But again, like I'm thinking of the books that I put hold a special place in my heart, and they like bring a smile to my face whenever I think about them, and that's not the feeling that I get with Lore.
No, you're right. It was quite sad as well in parts.
Yeah.
For quite a while. So yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
It is, I think, yeah. Loved It, I think, is a good place for it. And I love Lauren Jugs, but maybe yeah, just not as much as the other books in the series. So yeah, I think that's good. All right. So,
ooh.
This is the final list.
Total of, you read what, 36?
Mm-hmm.
I read, so we read a total of 44 books this year, yeah?
Yeah, 44 books that were read. Oh my gosh.
That's a good chunk. You did a lot of the heavy lifting, but
that's okay. It was a busy year. We'll read some more next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, reading's fun, so it was nice to be able to just read and kind of like review the books that we've read this this year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
alrighty. I do believe that is all that we have. Goodbye. Or do you have last words that you wanted to add?
happy holidays, happy Christmas, happy Yule, happy everything you celebrate. And if you don't celebrate anything, happy holiday time. Woo!
Yeah. Happy December, truly.
Happy December, yeah.
All right. Goodbye for now, Cinners.
See you next time.